Hello and welcome back to creating our rig in Maya. And last time we left off, we got our hands set up, created our skeleton, and got everything linked up together. So what we're going to do today is we are going to put in the IKs for the arm, create a controller for the wrist, and do set-driven keys. Set-driven keys is a way of adding an animation onto certain elements, for this time being the controller, and linking things up, but it'll make a lot of sense. So to start off with, got arm there, and we want to add the IK. Like before, we're going to go to skeleton, and we're going to go over to create IK. Click a little box here to get the tools up. Now before we used a chain solver for the leg, but this time I want a rotate because arms rotate more. So you could put a rotation on the leg, it's just a personal preference. So I'm not going to click on the collarbone, I'm going to click more here on the shoulder. Actually, I just realized the collar should be more in. I can adjust that later if need be. So click on there and click to the wrist, and that creates, and because we've got that bend here, it adds the bend where I need it to be, and I can test it out just by moving this. And you may notice in the channel box, which is this guy over here, we have this thing called twist, so I can twist the elbow around like so. Okay, just put everything back to default. I'm going to name this the character's left, so it's going to be L underscore arm IK. And that's the arm there done. And we just, as I say, it's easier to not have to try and click on this tiny little line here. It's nice to get a shape. So I'm going to go over to curves and surfaces tab here. And you can create your own shape if you want to, but I want to use just a quick circle. Make life easier. And holding down V on my keyboard, I'm going to grab it by the center here and just try and snap it. Now you notice when I grab things, is if I want to move it in all three axes, it's the center there, and I can rotate to make sure. Yep, I am very happy, and I'm just going to use a quick rotate, put on 90 degrees there, and yes, and I'm also going to just scale it up because it's a bit too tight on the wrist there, so just going to scale it out a wee bit and put this onto a nice even 2, and I'll press F just so I can focus in on there, and yes, that looks good. So I'm very happy with my circle, and I'm going to rename it L and so I can type L underscore arm controller. Now, I want this to be my, as I say, the arm controller, I want this to be the default pose. So we need to reset these numbers back mostly to 0 and 1 on the scale. So with it selected, going over to modify, freeze transformations, and that just does a nice factory reset. You may notice we've got these inputs in here, so with it still selected, I'm going to go to edit, delete by type history, and it just cleans things up there, because sometimes you give a history and sometimes it could later on muck things up. Now, unlike before, if we're looking at outliner, we got the foot to contain all the IKs, and that's how we linked everything up, and you can also separate it, etc. later. But we're going to do something very different with the arm. You could parent it, but we're going to try and use a constrain, which means it's locked together and you can't, it's not impossible to undo, but it's more hassle. We know that we just want this to follow the arm forever. So I'm going to select the circle and go to the selection tool there, and holding shift select the IK, or if you have difficulty you can always do it in the outliner, and go over to constrain parent I'm clicking away. I'm just going to make sure this moves. Yep, it's all linked up. So the IK that controls the armband is constrained to the circle, the controller. And again, that's the basic arm setup. Now for the more tricky part of it, which is getting our hand to program a movement into our hand which can be animated later. And in this example, we're just going to do a simple hand grabbing motion. So to add the attributes into here, the circle, I'm just going to go to modify, and we've got attributes here. We're going to add an attribute, and I'm simply going to call mine grab, making sure it's keyable, and minimum value, I'm going to put this to -10, and then maximum 10. It doesn't have to be those numbers, but you know, if you want more movement, etc. But I just think, just for learning, this is a good number. So I'm going to click add, and you can see it's added to the circle there. I'm going to go close here, and that's done very nicely. So next, we need to open up our hand. So I'm just going to try and select the wrist joint, get the direct select tool. The shortcut for this one is Q, so if we go W, Q, sometimes I may switch to that just to make selecting a lot easier. I'm just going to open up my root all the way down. Oop, don't know why that. There we go. I'm going to open this all the way down. I've got the wrist, and I want to open up each and every single joint here. Ooh. This is probably one of the tedious parts. By doing this, it saves you a lot of hassle later. So we've got all the joints there opened up, all minuses, no pluses. So now I'm going to click on this one, hold shift and click on the wrist so that all of them are selected. Sometimes it is possible to click on the wrist and it looks the same here, but as you can see, we have not selected all the joints. So I'm going to select all of them. Now I'm going to change my menu set from rigging to animation, and this allows us to access the animation settings. So I'm going to go here, set driven key, set. And this is where we can say some elements control others. So we're going to say that the rotate attributes on these joints are going to be controlled by the grab attribute on our circle. So if you think of this, these are known as the driven. So if you're in a car, whoever's driving determines where you're going. So these are the driven. So we're going to select the circle and load as the driver and select the grab attribute. And with the grab on 0, I'm going to hit key. And what that does, it simply says that all these joints, so all the finger joints selected on rotate, when the grab is at 0, this is the position they need to be in. So next is the fun part. I'm going to go to grab and increase the value to 10 maximum. And now I'm going to click on the index joint. Now holding shift, I'm skipping the middle one, I'm going to the ring and pinky, and then back to the middle. And the reason I did that was so if I get the rotate, it goes by the middle finger, and using the arrow keys, I can go up and down so I can control the way it rotates. So I'm just going to bend the finger into a grab. And I'm going to do is kind of it can also be a punch as well. So with the thumb over the fingers, otherwise if you try and punch someone with your thumb in there, you could potentially break your thumb. So I'm going to rotate and going up, pressing up. And I am using the middle mouse button to change the value. I'm just constantly checking. It's a bit too tight. Relax it just a bit. And yeah, I'm happy with that. Now, remembering the hand, it kind of spreads outwards, but when we bring it in, these come in a bit more. So on the index finger here, just gonna turn it in a smidge. Here, that's too much. Just a little bit, and this one a bit more. There we go. So it kind of, comes in like that. And now the thumb, go over the fingers. And yeah, I'm not having the thumb touching because when you have your mesh on top, it, don't want it exactly touching because the skin there. So a layer of skin. So just imagine. Usually you would have your model put together before you do this, but just when we're learning, this is a good point. So yep, I'm very happy with that. I'm going to click key. I'm going to click my circle and just give it a good test. Voila, I've got it moving. Now I'm selecting the word here, moving to this area and middle mouse button pressed, and I'm just dragging backwards and forwards to change the value manually. And yeah, very happy with that. So now we're going to do on -10, the complete opposite, with the hand spreading outwards like so. So I'm going to put it to -10, and on a shift, very similar to what we did before. Now I'm going to click this tool because if I have the circle on, it just clones the joints, and I don't want that to happen. Well, if you have the circle, then you click shift and click, then it clones. So now, just bending, and again taking. Now when we spread our fingers, sometimes some people, they go like really outwards like that. So I'm going to do a little bit of that, not too much, otherwise it looks like your fingers are a bit broken. And I don't want broken fingers. And now I'm just going to do fanning them out. Actually, I might do this from the side, the top view. There we go. So that's a bit easier. Just kind of following, going with the joint direction. So kind of spread like so. That looks about right. And to the side. Could spread them around a bit more. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. And now just the thumb. This case of just tweaking. Try and make this go straight as here. I am very happy with that. So bring back, Section key. I'm going to slam on key, give us a test. There we go. So we've got a nice grabbing movement. You can also and having that spread, you can bring it in a smidge because whenever we go to grab something in animation, you have to think of certain movements. So we always go spread just a fraction of a second before we grab something. So you can add that into that. So really pleased with that. And now you have the joy of doing the same to the other arm. So I'm going to get rid of Scepter and Key, bring back my rigging menu set, and I'm just going to very quickly repeat the process for the other arm. You could potentially mirror it over, but probably good practice just to go for the process again. And there you go, that's the second hand done. And you can apply this to all kinds of things like tails, ears, twitching the nose. There's so many ways you can use set driven keys to program your animation. So now is a really good time to go File, Increment and Save. And next time we're going to have a go at getting the more controls in there for the spine, the roots and everything. And then we're going to add a mesh, which we can hopefully bind later. So still quite a bit to go, but until next time, see you later.